Hello, sir.
Oh,
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very great pleasure to welcome you all for the last day of the Faculty Development Program on Responsible AI, conducted by PSG College of Technology, as a part of being sponsored by AICT ATAL. So today's insightful quote is by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, since it's the last day. Learning gives creativity, creativity leads to thinking, thinking provides knowledge, and knowledge makes you great. This quote beautifully illustrates the transformative journey of education, emphasizing its role in fostering creativity and critical thinking. And it's a great honor to introduce our esteemed speaker of today, Shivok Shirel Nandakumar, founder and CEO, RightScan Limited, CTO Robotics Innovator, AI Advocate. He's an accomplished entrepreneur and technologist specializing in artificial intelligence, robotics, and their responsible integration into modern society. As a founder and CEO of RightScan Limited, he leads groundbreaking innovations in AI-driven robot health monitoring, enhancing safety and reliability in autonomous systems. RightScan's advanced technology, developed during his research period, has been showcased globally, including at prestigious institutions such as University of Oxford and Cambridge. With over 5 years of hands-on experience with cutting-edge robotic systems, including humanoids, quadrupeds, and robotic arms, he has a deep understanding of technical and ethical challenges in deploying AI responsibly. His startup RightScan AI reflects a commitment to enhancing the transparency and safety of autonomous systems through continuous independent verification and performance optimization. His commitment to responsible AI extends beyond technology. He's passionate about fostering equity, diversity, and inclusion within the AI and robotic sectors. His efforts align with UN Sustainable Development Goal 9, driving sustainable innovation while ensuring human oversight remains central to AI-powered systems. An engaging speaker and thought leader, he has inspired audience at global innovation showcases, academic forums, and industry conferences. As an advocate for responsible AI, he emphasizes the balance between technological advancement and ethical consideration, striving to create solutions that benefit humanity. He holds a PhD in robotics and AI and has been recognized for his excellence in teaching and innovation, including securing endorsements such as the UK Innovator Founder Visa. He also mentors the next generation of robotics enthusiasts through courses designed to make robotics accessible to young minds. His vision is to ensure human-centric AI deployment that promotes trust, reliability, and safety across industries. We are very happy to have such an expert for the last day of the FTP. Great to have you here, sir, and thanks for accepting our invitation and gracing with your presence. And over to you.
thank you, Surya, for the warm introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being present. And I know that it's the final day, and everyone's towards the. I'm sure that you have experienced a lot of interesting talks, and I'm happy to share my thoughts on the ethical aspects, ethical, technical, and operational frameworks, especially for robotics side. Like, how can we ensure the responsible deployment of specifically robots, and why we need to do that, basically. And so we can start with, like, why the responsible AI in robotics matters, or what is exactly like a responsible deployment of these systems mean, and why it needs to be done now, or why not before, and why this should be done now. So these are some of the questions that we'll be exploring. And in terms of workshop takeaways, we'll be exploring the importance of responsible deployment, and what are the challenges at the moment when we try to integrate AI into the robots, and what are the potential consequences as well as opportunities. And we will explore some of the frameworks that can be used or that should be thought about when we try to deploy these autonomous systems integrated with AI, and how can we responsibly deploy these systems. And if we will try to do a short exercise, creating um, making you think in terms of some thoughts related to responsible deployment, especially with the scenario-based exercise. And I will be sharing some of the tools and potentially resources that you could explore further to figure out how the um, responsible deployment, especially related to um, robotics, is being done, and what are the potential ways to do that. And yes, and then we can close the talk. So to start with, almost everybody know that the robotics is the future, because it's been developing for the last 50 to 60 years, and there was a lot of technological breakthroughs. um, there was a the global robotics market is being expected to surpass like $200 billion in 2030. It is projected to be one of the big markets across the world. But even now, there are a lot of problems in the robotics and self-driving. So very recently, like 2 days ago, um, there was a big company in the US that have been invested by um, another big companies. Like the company is called Cruise, and the Cruise is a self-driving car company in the US. They have been um, developing from 2013, and they deployed self-driving cars in the public in 2023 early. They were the first one to deploy in the world um, to the public and start the paid trial. But there was an incident that happened in 2023 October 2nd, where a human pedestrian was hit by a human-driven car, and the human-driven car hit the pedestrian, and the pedestrian fell towards the um, self-driving car, and the self-driving car like made a safety maneuver, and the safety maneuver is dragging the human for 20 feet, and that led to the cancellation of the permit, self-driving car permit, in California for the company, for the Cruise. And the CEO of the company had to resign. 25% of the company's employees were um, laid off, and there was a lawsuit to the company due to that minor injury of the human. And yesterday, 2 days ago, the funding was cut to the Cruise, and basically, even after $10 billion spent on the self-driving car company, it's going to be bankrupt, or it will soon become obsolete. So that means that the technological risks are still there, and if we don't solve the technological risk and we try to deploy it earlier, that lead that can lead to public distrust, and that can topple down any even big markets or industries or companies. So even though the robotics is projected to be like a really big market, unless and until we make sure that it is responsibly deployed, there is a lot of problems, or the market may not be capitalized. And that was not a specific incident. Like there are multiple other issues that are happening. For example, in 2023 November, um, in South Korea, a human was crushed to death by a robot. The robot was mistakenly thinking the human as a box of pepper, and it grabbed and killed the human. And the human was more like a technician, so he was working with the robot to make sure some things, but nonetheless, that accident happened, and a human was dead. So there are technical issues even now that need to be addressed, and also we need to be ensuring these systems are deployed responsibly so that we can make sure these um, technical or other related issues will not emerge. And so these are some of the pointers in terms of the importance of responsible deployment. So what are the potential elements that we need to consider when we try to deploy a system or a robotic system responsibly, right? So we can consider three of the pillars: ethical implications, societal implications, as well as operational risks. So in terms of ethical implications, we can explore three of the ways in which we should consider when we try to deploy these systems, right? For example, especially when we look at AI integrated into the robots, um, the bias is one of the major factor that people are working on. For example, there were incidents in which the neural networks, especially the vision systems, right? So if the vision system or AI based vision is trained on a data set that is biased. For example, if a robot is tasked to detect humans, to dispense sanitary, like some hand wash. For example, the robot is assigned to do like a detect a human, and then it needs to, once the human is detected and the human is nearby, the robot should automatically provide a um, hand wash for the human, right? But if we did if the AI integrated in the robot is biased in a sense, if the AI data inside the robot is um, trained with more humans who are maybe white, that means that the AI will be more likely to detect the white humans than the black humans, right? That means that there's a possibility that if a human um, is not statistically aligned. That means that there won't be hand wash when that person is very nearby. So that's an extreme bias that shouldn't happen when we deploy these systems in the public. And this has happened even in the self-driving cars. If the data is biased, there is a high possibility that this kind of issues can happen in the real world, in the self-driving cars, in any kind of self vision systems. So it's important to make sure the bias of these systems are minimized. And there is privacy, which have been a discussion, especially since the OpenAI um, and other related AI companies started deploying things in the public, especially the data sources of a lot of places have been compromised because of this training from different data sources. And this is one of the major discussions. I don't have any specific way of ensuring that, but it is essential for anyone who is training an AI to at least endorse the creators who have actually created the work. If someone is training, like at least making sure that the data that they use to train is acknowledged. And in terms of safety, it is very clear, especially when we are trying to think about AI in physical systems. So robots are basically physical systems, and now if the AI is integrated into these physical systems, that's much higher risk than ChatGPT mentioning some random words. So it is very important that we consider safety when we integrate AI into the robots. And in terms of societal impact, it is very clear that there will be more likely not exactly job displacement. Yeah, it will be more like as with every technology, it will be continuously iterating. So new jobs will emerge, old jobs will go, and that's the usual. But we should always be thinking about what are the consequences and how we can mitigate or minimize that impact and maximize the overall good to everyone. And another element is accessibility. So in terms of the systems deployed, it shouldn't be always designed to be used by one specific type of people. It should be as accessible as possible by thinking about all the people or all the kinds of scenarios in which it will be used. And to do that, we should be thinking it from the first day of designing and development of that system itself. And operational risks are basically, as I mentioned in the cruise example, like a minor injury or a minor issue can lead to even $1 billion company to fail. So making sure that the systems are consistently reliable and minimizing the failures will definitely be one of the things people should consider as they integrate AI into the robots. And I mentioned regarding this is important. So uh, we can explore like why it is happening, like why AI robots are um, not yet ready, or what are the current challenges that is happening. So this is a image from a published paper that I published early 2024. It is exploring all the anomaly detection methods that are currently existing in the research, and I was able to figure out what are the challenges that are happening in the when we integrate AI into the robot. So for example, a robot can be considered as a doing a task can be considered as an autonomous robotic mission. And for example, robot will be going from A to B, um, maybe delivering a coffee. And if that task is repeated n times, and if that task is in an established context, then the robot will be having an expected behavior, or robot will be doing an expected behavior as shown in the green color. So that means that it will be executing the same task in a reliable manner for most of the time. But if the environment is mildly altered, there is a chance that that the times it is repeating reliably will be decreased. And if it's executed in a very novel environment, that means a very new environment, that means um, there is a high possibility that there will be a lot of unexpected behaviors. And what constitute unexpected behavior is also um, a big discussion in the research environment, in the research field. So there are system anomalies, environmental anomalies, and various kinds of system anomalies and environmental anomalies, and there is a potential for interacting of these two anomalies. So one of the key problems in the self-driving, I mean, in the AI integrated robots is the um, aleatoric uncertainty. So that is an uncertainty in any kind of AI models that are deployed to a real world use case. That means that the output of an AI cannot be completely predicted, considering that the input is always varying. So for example, we cannot train a system, especially in the robotic context. We cannot train a system with every data of the world. Even in the self-driving, even if it's trained through simulations, even if it's trained through testing environments, there is always a possibility that there will be new type of that data set that having the robotic AI haven't seen. So we cannot know how the system is going to behave when that specific new data is entered as an input. So that's one of the ways to define aleatoric uncertainty. That means that there will be an inherent uncertainty in the decision making of the current AI systems. Um, and now we can move forward to one of the ways in which we can try to develop frameworks. I'm sure that there are multiple um, frameworks, as well as a lot of world-class researchers are actively working on figuring out what are the ways to um, create frameworks, especially for AI, in terms of language scenarios. There are people who are working in the robotic sector who are also exploring how we can um, create frameworks for this kind of responsible deployment. So it's a very early stage, but it's a very active research field, even not only in the robotics, but also in AI in general. And these are one of few of the strategies that we could think about when we try to develop that framework for responsible deployment, especially in the context of robots. So we can consider three strategies: technical strategies, ethical strategies, and operational strategies. And in terms of technical strategies, one of the ways we can make it more responsible is by explaining AI, or utilizing the explainable AI concept. And that is a hard problem to solve. And I don't think there is a clear explainable AI at this point of time. But there are a lot of researchers working on this problem, and trying to make the AI decisions as transparent as possible, utilizing a lot of mathematical um, quantification methods and visualization methods and more. So it is an active field, and there is a lot of potential to do explainable AI, especially even in the context of robots. And another way, an obvious way, will be safety testing and validation. So there should be standard ways of doing the deployment of robots in the public. There should be standardized testing. There should and the ways to validate these claims before it is deployed in the public domain. And that is being done, like the safety testing and validation, um, especially for the industrial robots. So there are two types of robots. So the earlier robots, I would say, like industrial era robots, where the robots are very precise. They have model-based systems. So that means that um, the mathematical equations inside the robots are very precise to millimeter accuracy. They will do what it is supposed to do all the time, repeatedly, 24/7. So that was the robots for at least until 2020, 2010 to 12. So those robots are very robust, and they have very defined safety testing and validation, and it's being deployed in a lot of industries without any problems. And they also have this kind of very rigorous safety testing. But the robots that need more safety testing and validation is the AI integrated robots. They are they are flexible. They are capable of doing a lot of things, and that's why like a chat GPT moment for robots may evolve very soon. That means that the robots will be very flexible to do a lot of tasks, but um, that comes with inherent issues. So that comes with an element of uncertainty. As I mentioned, there are possibilities of uncertain decisions by the robot that can that cannot be reasoned to a general public, considering there is already existing fears with respect to dystopic movies. So even though it's a very technical problem, humans usually don't easily be convinced in that regard. So the way will be to always ensure very reliable safety testing and validation, but at the moment, safety testing and validation for AI integrated robots are very limited. There needs to be a lot of active research to make sure that this is done in the right way. And one of the other ways which I did through my PhD is task-based risk scoring. So what is task-based risk scoring is basically looking at the robot and understanding what the robot is doing or what the robot's task is, and creating a risk score for that task, and continuously assessing the robot and continuously assessing that risk score. So if the robot is assigned a task and if it's reliably doing the task, the risk score will be 0. And if the risk score is increasing, basically that means that there are problems in the robot or in the environment. And now we can explore also like ethical strategies. For example, we want the robots to be autonomous. We want it to do everything on its own. But I think we also need to have a human oversight. So no matter how autonomous a robot becomes, humans should have the ultimate control and responsibility in these systems. So there should be like a human oversight in these systems, and this can also be achieved by by having this task-based monitoring. And as I was previously mentioning, inclusivity in development is one of the essential things that we need to think about when we try to deploy it responsibly. So one of the key aspects would be to make sure that the systems deployed are inclusive. And in terms of operational strategies, the reliability and the consistency of the systems will be increasingly important when we try to deploy. And at the moment, they rely on their own robots, on data, robots on um, internal models to confirm the robot is doing what it is supposed to do. But the challenge with these kind of internal assessing systems is that it is observing itself from internally. For example, we humans have our own internal monitoring systems. But if a person is drunk or if a person is not in a state of a good mindset, that means um, there is a possibility that we might think we are doing right things, but a person or people externally will be figuring out or understanding that what we are doing is not right. So similarly, if a AI integrated robot is thinking that it is doing what it is supposed to do as its own internal model says, it may think that it is right, but from outside perspective, from only outside perspective can we capture the problem. So in terms of the operational strategies, we need some kind of independent system to monitor the robots, and or having this kind of a life cycle monitoring is one of the ways to do that, and that's possible now with the right scan. And the other element is scalability with safety. So there are some robots integrated with AI, and people can mention that it is safe in a very defined environment. But the challenges of complexity as we scale the system to wider markets or wider areas is this scalability with safety. So we need to make sure that the system is safe even if it's deployed on a global scale or on a big scale. So we need to make sure that the reliability of the systems and the safety of the system is always consistent. And um, I so I can share like a earliest demonstration of the ride scan that happened in 2023 at the National Robotorium. National Robotorium is the UK's robotics and artificial intelligence research center, where mostly a lot of AI and robotic research happens. And I was I was part of the my PhD was inside that National Robotorium, and this is one of the experiments that demonstrates the potential of pride scan, or the idea of um, independent monitoring of robots. Um, so in this scenario, um, what's happening here is there is a robot, and that robot is state of the art. That means that is it's capable of doing autonomous tasks. So it's from Boston Dynamics. It's a robot dog that is deployed or developed by the Boston Dynamics, the top US company. And what the robot does is basically it can walk around in the industry. It can scan things. It can notify the scanning outcomes, and it can come back home. So basically, it goes roam around in the industry, check for problems, and it will come back home. In this scenario, it is assigned to do like a scanning of an object towards that location, and then it will be coming back to home. The challenge is that the robot will be mentioning, or if the robot's objectives, so basically the objectives are like going around, scanning, and coming back. If those objectives are completed, the robot itself will be telling that it was successful according to its own criterias. But what happens if there is a random chairs in the way? What happens if there is a random problems in the way, or wear and tear, or like a random humans inside that location which shouldn't be there? So even though the objectives of the robots were completed, there were problems in the environment, or even in the robot. That might be like a wear and tear of the system, and that may not be captured by the robot. Like the robot will be thinking that those are minor, I don't need to care about, but my objectives were completed. So with the right scan, what it does is basically it collects the high level data from the robot, and it will be continuously observing that robot. So in this scenario, I'll share the video now. So you can see that when, okay, so I think the video is not playing, so it's okay. It seems like there is some technical issue related to playing the video, um, either from the Zoom side or yeah. So yeah, it would have been good if we can show the video, but the idea is that there is a um, system that will be looking at the robot, and you can get like a quantified results from that ride scan that provides an indication of problems. So for example, it will be capturing the intensity of variations in the environment that that captures the variation, that captures the problems in the robot, and we can utilize that risk score to inform the operators or even the manufacturers themselves to improve the robot or make sure that the environment is consistent. And it's a scalable system. That means that it is not just for the specific robot, it can be applied to any autonomous robots. um, this video and information will definitely be available on um, my LinkedIn as well as yeah, various platforms, so you can definitely access those. um, so um, I think the other one of the things that we can do at the moment is we can have like a an interactive session or an exercise wherein we can think about a scenario in which we need to be thinking about the responsible deployment of the systems. So we can think about a scenario in which a mobile robot is like a robot with wheels. You can think about it as like a mobile robot with wheels that is being deployed in a crowded city for food delivery. So if you were the one to do the or assigned with that responsible deployment, what are the let's start with the ethical ethical scenario, like ethical considerations that we need to think about when we are trying to deploy the systems. If you were like a person responsible for this system to be ethically deployed, what are the things that you will consider? Is the is um is the members able to provide like able to message in the group, or is it's completely view only? Yes, that's good. So so we can explore like what are the if we can share like what are the ethical considerations for um, when we try to deploy a mobile robot in a crowded city. What are the ethical considerations that we need to think about, um, especially for responsible deployment? And we can yeah, any kind of thoughts that you have at this point of time in terms of ethically deploying these systems would be good start, and then after that we can explore the technical and operational challenges as well. So we can get like a one or two thoughts on um, responsibly deploying, especially in terms of the ethical context, would be good. Yeah, all thoughts are welcome. There is no right or wrong answers in the ethical deployment of robots, because it's a very emerging field, and everyone is thinking about how we can responsibly deploy. So all kind of thoughts is welcome, in a sense that what are the things that we need to think about when we uh, try to deploy a mobile platform in a um, public crowded place. Yes, yes, so Mina was suggesting ethical in terms of public awareness. So yes, so that's a good answer. In a sense, we should be thinking about the public, especially mentioning to them that this is going to happen. So in a sense, making sure that they are aware of these deployments, making them aware of robotic systems being deployed is a very important thing to do as in terms of ethical aspects. Yes, we definitely need to consider the safety as Vijayalakshmi is mentioning. The safety will be related, in a sense it will be technical as well as in terms of public safety, in terms of making sure that these systems are responsibly deployed, to make sure that this is safe enough to be deployed. Like we need to make sure that um, no humans or nothing is injured in during this kind of deployments. So yeah, definitely. So public awareness, safety, and is there any other ethical considerations that we need to have? Yeah. So in terms of the ethical considerations, we can also think about where the robots will be deployed, right? For example, um, the robot shouldn't be taking all the spaces for the pedestrians, or if it's deployed in the roads. Yes. Yeah, in terms of operational, following the shot. Yeah, perfect. So we can start with the ethical, and in terms of ethical, one more thing we need to consider is the path that the robot is doing. So is it's going to execute. So if it's a mobile platform, um, we need to think about where the robot is deployed, especially in terms of if it's aligned with the human, like a pedestrian path. We shouldn't be hindering the flow of humans. The humans shouldn't feel that they are being um, I would say pressured to follow a specific path in the pedestrian walk. It should be like a very seamless in a sense. We should always make sure that the humans are feeling comfortable even when there are different types of robots doing its own delivery, and making sure that it is user friendly, child friendly, and pleasant to be around, in terms of the robots movements and features, and it shouldn't be inconvenient to humans in that crowded environment. And if there is a crossing that needs to be traveled, we should always consider human first to make sure that the humans are given priority in all those scenarios, as well. So some of the ethical, yeah, those are some of the ethical considerations. And now we can move to the technical challenges. So what might be some of the technical challenges when we try to deploy these mobile robots in a crowded um, city? What are the technical challenges with respect to responsible deployment that we need to consider?
Dear participants, you can interact through the messages in the chat window. Kindly be interactive.
Yes, so there is a operational. So we will be exploring the operational operational challenges in the next one. Yes, and yeah, the technical. Yes, finding exact location. Yes, that's one of the challenges that's technical, and that's going to be very relevant, especially in a crowded environment. And if we don't make sure that the system is not um, finding that exact location, or if it's derailing from its predefined locations, that can lead to a lot of inconvenience, um, as well as a lot of issues with the robots. So yes, making sure that we have a very reliable technological solution to make sure that the robots are following exact or finding that exact locations for its movements is important. And this is definitely one of the most challenging thing at the moment. in a sense that a robot going from A to B and making sure that it is able to execute that full task, by making sure that the exact location, especially if we deploy in the crowded environment, there is a high possibility of interference with other communication systems. Yes, the other one, finding hindrance in pathways like robotic cars and sometimes hit-on objects. Yes, that's also a really good technical challenge. And there are, at the moment, people are working on these issues in terms of how we can navigate if there is multiple robots. So for us humans, we usually have our eyes. We look at other person and figure out what their intentions is, and then we figure out like whether we should move right, left, or we should stay, or like, and we have our own ways of communicating with random humans to make sure that we are not obstructing or having that kind of a path, obstructing their own path. So at the moment, the robots struggle to communicate with each other, and or but that should be rectified as a technical problem as we progress and as we deploy in this crowded environment. Yes, and the other one, registry is mentioning hurdles, exceptions in the past. Yes, it's related to the previous one. Um, if there is a obstacles or if there's a hurdles and exceptions, what does or what should the robot do at that point of time? So there will be two possibilities. I think one will be to just stop, and the other one will be to um, figure out an intelligent solution overcoming that specific path. Both are important in a sense that there might be scenarios in which stopping is the most ideal way, and there might be scenarios in which we need to make sure that a new path is defined considering the criticality of a task. And yes, the timings of work power. Yeah, so um, yeah, it's always important to make sure that the food is delivered on time. Yes, otherwise nobody likes to eat a cold dosha. So yes, we need to have this defined timing for these systems, and to have that timed scenarios, we might need to make sure that technically it's capable of making a lot more autonomous decisions um, to move even in the uncertain environment. So uh, that's one of the technical challenges at the moment, and people are definitely working on those. And yes, that's a very important technical challenge when we try to deploy it responsibly. Yes. Now, I think the technical and operational challenges will be intertwined. Like there will be like a crossovers. But if we can share like what might be the operational challenges um, that might be relevant for this specific scenario of deploying a mobile robot in a crowded city. Yeah, so some of the operational is related to the technical, but in terms of operational, we could think of how that system is consistently delivering its task. So one of the ways to do that will be to make sure that we continuously monitor um, the system all the time whenever it is deployed. So that allows us to have a quantified information of how reliable these systems are all the time whenever it is deployed. So we will ensure that operational reliability of these systems, which is very important as we progress, because that will be helping us to gain the trust in the public. The public trust is the most important thing, especially in the robotic sector, as it's evident from very recent examples of um, companies failing because of the inconsistency and unreliability of the systems. So to gain the public trust, what we need is reliability. We need to make sure that things are done always, all the time, everywhere. And to do that, we cannot mention that we cannot trust the manufacturers to claim that their system is safe. And the only way to do will be to independently assess and continuously assess the systems, and that's one of the ways to do that will be through ride scan as well. But it's um, it's a tricky scenario because the systems are extremely complex. The robots are doing different tasks, different dynamics, different operational environments. So figuring out a standardized way of doing it is hard, but it's possible. Um, so those are the few of the things that we need to think about when we try to deploy these systems in the um, in a public city, in a crowded city. And is there any other thoughts that you have related to deploying these systems in the public, apart from the things that we have discussed? Is there anything that you think we should consider when we try to deploy a robot in a crowded city? Okay, I think, yeah, that's totally fine. So I think we have discussed almost all the elements um, of um, responsible deployment in the context of, specifically in the context of a robot being deployed in the city. But these frameworks can be thought into any kind of robots. What are the things that we need to think about in terms of ethically and technically, and what are the operational challenges as well? So if we can define those things, then we will be able to minimize the irresponsible deployment. And now we can these are some of the resources. So there is an AI ethics and safety autonomous system forum on LinkedIn, that you can access through that link. um, this yes sorry, yeah, you can access through this link. And the other tool, obviously, since I'm working on the right scan, it's a very early stage, but it's a soft tool that will be available to any kind of autonomous robots, um, to continuously monitor the robot doing the task. The fundamental of right scan is a new AI method that I developed through my PhD, that allows us to understand behaviors of the robot doing any kind of task. So it will be like increasingly become like a tool for robots independent assessment or independent monitoring of the systems when deployed in the public spaces. And very recently, there is the European Union's AI Act, which came into picture, um, which contains very detailed information on how the AI will be regulated in the European market. But I would say it's not just for the European market. The fundamental thoughts inside that AI Act can be definitely adopted to everywhere, wherever the AI is being used. And there are specific subsections in the AI Act that can influence the decision making for responsible deployment of high risk systems such as robots. So we can classify robots or physical systems as high risk because of the potential consequences of these systems. So um, there are some defined rules or potentially defined rules in the AI Act that can be adopted to utilize in terms of responsible deployment of AI integrated robots. And I'm sure everywhere, I mean, there are multiple regulatory frameworks from around the world um, that's being published. So keeping an eye on all the regulatory standards that are being developed is a very important thing to do. Considering that this AI Act is already defined, it is very easy to explore and understand what are the current thinking with respect to the European market. And there are very very standards and very important international standards that are being published, and one of them is IS 42001 that provides you with details on what are the things that we need to think about when we deploy an AI. And this will be increasingly essential for AI companies to make sure they are compliant with their own responsible use, or with their own use of AI systems. And I was mentioning regarding the case study with that mobile robot, and the concepts or the thinking behind what are the regulatory standards that needs to be done when we deploy these mobile robots is being developed as a standard, which will be published in 2025-26, and which is ISO 4448. So you can keep an eye on those kind of systems, and then um, that allows you to make sure that you are at the forefront of these AI regulatory standards. Um, so, so in short, if there is a takeaway that you need to be um, thinking about is prevention is better than cure, which is an old saying, but it's always true. It is easier to prevent than to cure, and it will always be the same. Um, and to do the responsible deployment, we need collaboration across engineering, ethics, and regulation. So we need philosophy, we need technical concepts, and law. We need the law to regulate as well. So we need a synergy. We need a discussion um, from multiple parts of the society, which usually work on their own silos, but we need a collaborative thinking to make sure that these systems are responsibly deployed and sustainable for a human ecosystem. Um, so yeah, that's it for today. And you can always contact me on this email, or you can definitely connect me on LinkedIn, either through QR code, or you can just search my name and you will definitely be able to connect on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions at the moment, feel free to ask.
Dear participants, the session is open for queries. You can put your queries either in the chat window or you can put a message so that we will unmute you. Dear participants, you can raise your queries. The session is open for queries. Either to put as messages in the chat window or you can raise your hand so that you will be unmuted.
Yeah, so is there an AI Act specifically in India? So in India, there are actively working on AI Acts. There is no very defined AI Act at this point of time, but there are very, very active research groups that are focused on defining that AI regulatory acts in India, and um, you could definitely see the progress as we progress. Yes, there are definitely active research, and there is no, yeah.
Sir, I do have a question. Somewhere I have come across this technique called as retrieval augmented generation. Probably somewhere I read related to hallucinations in kind of AI systems.
Yes.
Could you give me an idea about what it is?
Yes, so that's one of the ways in which uh, the AI systems are improving itself in some sense. Like they can be used in especially in the context of robots. The RAG method is used in defining um, very very loosely held knowledge to gain some information. For example, in the preventive maintenance of the robots, it can be used in figuring out the problems in the robot by integrating the knowledge in the RAG. So integrating the knowledge points in the RAG-based system that allows to capture specific information from that not well defined structures. So that's one of the ways, especially in the robotics. But in terms of AI systems, in terms of the language, that's where it's currently being mostly used, like the RAGs. And I don't have like a very I mean, like there is not much experience that I have with respect to the RAG. Um, but what I have from the observation, it seems to be used beyond the training. So once we have a system, then how can we improve that, improve its own defined things, or we can utilize the RAG to make sure that it is increasingly useful to that defined situations. That's one of the ways.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, if you have any queries, please do post it in the chat window. I hope so sir has also shared all his details to contact him. Even after that, if you get queries later in future, probably send it as a mail to the registered email ID of the FDP, and we will take it to sir and get back to you. So if there are no more further queries, I would take this opportunity to thank Dr. Shivok for accepting the invitation and raising this session on the last day. It was really wonderful talking more about the responsible AI concepts with respect to robotics. The session was very awesome, sir. I hope everybody thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Surya. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye for now.